Champion now, champion forever.
Get another one of these this year.
It's my year, man. Draft day. Let's get it.
Y'all ready to get fucked?
I'm the guy with the 48th pick as his first pick. It's gonna hurt this year.
It's my year.
Garrett Wilson better not fuck me over this year.
Fuck your mother.
Beginner's luck for me.
What's up, the best night ever football league? I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do for my recap since I've never done one, but honestly, I just feel like venting for a second about fantasy football. I think everyone's kind of the same point, week 10, who's, below 500 record-wise. They might just be feeling a little frustrated, with how they drafted or with how things were going with losing by a couple points to your brother-in-law. That's always frustrating. And then, losing to him twice in the same season, giving him 2 out of his 3 wins, that's pretty frustrating. So I prepped a slideshow just kind of going over the frustrations of fantasy football, a journey through pain, regret, and the waiver wire. So I think the biggest frustration I've had is just realizing after week 1, you made some just absolute horrendous, draft decisions. And just to highlight a couple of those, Marvin Harrison. I almost drafted Marvin, and thank God I didn't, because if I had him, Kyler, and they just haven't been, I think, what everyone expected. Waddle, I drafted him in the second round, and that was a huge mistake. Caleb Williams went in the top 5, and he just hasn't produced what I think anyone expected. I think part of that might be coaching in the Bears organization. BC is one of the best wide receiving core in the league, honestly. This is another one I regret. Jonathan Brooks. I don't know why I drafted him. I think it's one of those where you watch a TikTok, before the draft, and someone just hypes up a player so much that oh yeah, he's gonna be so good, and he hasn't played a single possession this year, I don't think. Devontae Adams, he's been a super disappointment. I think Raiders, just that organization sucks, and then even the Jets, he's been kind of a disappointment. Super talented, but honestly, just it's honestly too bad. Debo, just not what he was last year. Last year, he had a couple hat tricks in a couple games, and that was super fun to watch. It's, again, just unfortunate. He's incredibly talented, but you just don't know how the season unfolds. Chris Olave, he sucked last year, and he sucks this year. It's honestly, the Saints just suck. Injuries always hard. I think this is another frustration. It typically always goes as, one of your players is finally having a breakout season, like, Stephon Diggs, for example, and then that means it's time for them, good time to get injured. So some examples, Pacheco with his leg. Tua, week 2, that was horrible. Again, I can't believe he's still playing, but I'm also very thankful he's still playing. Stephon Diggs, and then Dak Prescott, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, with his hamstring or some muscle in his leg, out for the season. That's a huge blow, especially quarterbacks when they go out. It's even more frustrating if you have their wide receiver, because like Tua going out affects Michael with Tyreek Hill. Dak going out affects Oscar with CeeDee Lamb. So it's just injuries suck. And then it's always the bench dilemma that's so frustrating. I swear half the time, you decide to flip your lineups and you're like, oh, okay, this guy hasn't been doing that great, so I'm going to try a new guy. And then it seems like it always goes like this. When players are on the bench in fantasy, they just pop off. Kind of the point. Seems like that always happens. Nothing worse. Bye weeks suck too. It's so frustrating, especially with the 2 QB lineup. Having one of your like rock star or your keepers on a bye week, that a lot of times is tough. And then sometimes it just feels like your whole entire team is on a bye week, especially these upcoming couple weeks. Fantasy projections are lies. This is also, I kind of like this meme, my actual fantasy football score versus my projected fantasy football score. I feel like this happens all the time. And it goes both ways, though, thankfully. But yeah, there's nothing worse than having like a 90% win chance going into like Monday Night Football, and then someone's defense just goes off scoring 25 points and you end up losing that week. That's pretty frustrating. That one guy who always wins. I feel like every year there's someone like this who really doesn't really score any points, but somehow they just find ways to win. And I feel like this year it's definitely Thomas. Thomas is 7-3, and he's only averaged a little over 100 points a week, which is still like not horrible, but it's just funny how sometimes you can just find ways to win and just sneak in. So thankfully this is a World Cup year, so none of this really matters record wise. So, and then the thought of losing and being faced with all the punishments kind of starting to haunt me, being 3-7 and just not really having a great team. So sometimes I think about what happens if I have to do the car wash. That strikes a lot of fear in me. That's a really good punishment on Bobby's end, and I pray I don't get that one if I end up losing. That's something. And then the puzzle one by Jacob, that one sounds horrible. Tattoo, that'd be horrible. Skydiving would be kind of fun, but also I know a lot of people that's a huge fear. But so hopefully it doesn't come down to that. And yet we still come back every year because for some reason we love this shit so much that we do it every year. It's funny how that works, where we go in this cycle of like having your highs and lows throughout the season, and then coming back in August and prepping for the draft, everyone's so hyped and is excited for the next season. So it's kind of fun. A little Arnold meme. And then so I guess to go into what's also frustrating is being in 2 leagues. So this year I'm in this league for the first time. And then also I have a very similar football league with my high school friends from Blanchette, and then friends we've added from OSU. And so I'm 3-7 in this league, and then in this other league I'm 3-7 also. So just like a lot of frustration with fantasy this year. And so kind of speechless. Sometimes watching Red Zone is really hard when your team's just, not very good. But anyway, that's enough me complaining about my shitty team. Getting into the recap, this was a tough one, losing to Michael. Kyler and Russ both had great games, super fun to watch. Tua had a not so great performance, same with Darnold. On my end, Jonathan Taylor and Hubbard honestly played pretty well. Detroit had an amazing win this week. That was super fun to watch. They didn't do as well, but still pretty good. Marvin Harrison did honestly okay. Like thinking that Kyler having almost 250 yards in passing, I thought Marvin would do a little better, but that's okay. Garrett Wilson not doing super hot. Zay Flowers honestly is very hit or miss. Kincaid not too hot. Yeah, just overall. And then the Eagles putting up 23 points is awesome on defense. That never helps. Let's get into one of my favorite teams. Honestly, Connor's team is super stacked. Just having Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson at QB, that's incredible. I don't know the full history of how that happened, but that's awesome. And then just his team is just absolutely stacked. And see, Gregor's team's honestly really good for being first year. It's too bad what happened with Baker and Tampa with his wide receivers being injured, but Baker still doing not too bad. And then Cortland Sutton, which is, I was super surprised. He was pretty bad with Russ. And then Bo Nix has really, I think, done a great job in the Sean Payton system. Just going through this. Yeah, but overall, this was another good win for Connor. And then this is really hard. If I was Gregor, I'd be extremely frustrated. Yeah, less than a tenth of a point. That's tough. Bobby versus Cam. Cam is another stacked team. Cam's team is insane. His quarterbacks, all three of them, super good. Let's see who else. Jamar Chase dropping 54 points. That's just ridiculous. 3 touchdowns. Joe Burr is back last year. That was too bad when he got injured. Let's look at Bobby. Bobby's team is pretty good. Josh Allen honestly, this is probably a pretty mediocre performance for Josh Allen, but he's still super good. This is too bad. Cooper Rush, -4 points. Joe Mixon, Houston, that was a tough loss for Houston. Travis Kelce, it's really exciting seeing a tight end do well. Jacob versus Oscar. This is a good win for Jacob, being at 500. Patrick Mahomes somehow finding a way to win. I don't know how they do it. I think they're 9-0, and it's just so frustrating. I think the Chiefs they have a good shot at making it 3-peat, which would just be insane. Amon St. Brown, he had a couple really big catches in that game, in that second half. Jefferson, probably struggling just because of Sam Darnold right now. What's been cool with Stevenson is that once Drake May started playing pretty well, it's cool seeing Stevenson's performance also. He's just doing better. He's just performing better. Oscar had a kind of low score, probably a low score for him for the season. Just kind of struggling. And just an off week probably for Oscar. His team's always pretty good overall also, with Saquon and Puka being back. CeeDee Lamb and Dak, that's a huge blow, but CeeDee Lamb is insane. See who else we got. We have Andrew and T-Bay. So Andrew's 1-9. That's just super tough with, CMC being out almost all year. But it's World Cup here, so it seems like record doesn't mean anything. Devontae Adams. I hope Devontae Adams starts doing a little better. I think the Jets just had a tough weekend. Jennings, he's doing pretty well with Ayuk and Debo, just not doing as well or being injured with those injuries. Let's see who else. Not starting quarterback. It's an interesting play. I think just because you didn't want to drop someone. But anyway, Justin Herbert's been doing pretty well recently. Breece Hall doing pretty well. Chan doing okay since Tua come back. Debo just not doing as much as like years past. Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up my first fantasy football recap. It's been really fun so far. It's been really challenging. I think being in the 2 leagues and not doing as great in both of those leagues is, challenging at times, but it's also been really fun and the camaraderie. And I think I really enjoy watching fantasy, or I really enjoy watching football more during, when I actually have guys playing. It's an overall more enjoyable experience. And yeah, I'm really thankful for being part of the Best Night Ever Football League and excited for my next recap with Michael. So I hope everyone has a great week and good luck this next weekend.